Hi everybody, my name is Ben Booman. I'm in the Law and Brain group. I guess you guys probably think it's kind of a strange name for a law group, and that makes a lot of sense because it's a pretty new idea to start merging neuroscience, evolutionary psychology, psychology, the brain sciences with the law. It's been going on for a long time with just pure psychology, pure just behavioral studies, but with the growing importance of neuroscience imaging techniques, new advances in neuroscience, and just the growth of evolutionary thought in the brain sciences and in psychology in particular, law and neuroscience and law in the brain generally has taken a new velocity, a new momentum that over the last few years that you can see in law schools across the country. So we're a group that is trying to link into what people are doing in a lot of different places. So we have a really exciting semester plan for next semester, and thankfully we have a speaker today, Tom Burke, one of our 1Ls, who is going to give kind of an introduction to how evolutionary psychology and evolutionary thought might inform our understanding of the law. Tom is a major in neuroscience at University of Southern California, is currently, as I said, a 1L at University of Pennsylvania Law School. I'm pleased to introduce him, and thanks very much for speaking, Tom. He's going to talk for, 20, 30 minutes or so, and then maybe a little less, no problem, and then we're going to have time for questions and discussion after. So thanks very much for coming. Pizza will be on its way soon. Tom, thanks.
Hello everyone, as Ben introduced me, I'm Tom Burke, and today I wanted to talk about mostly law and evolutionary thought and how it applies to the law. And for the basic layout of this discussion, I was more or less going to walk through an article published in Columbia Law Review in 2005 by Owen Jones, who is a professor of law and biological sciences at Vanderbilt, and Timothy Goldsmith, a professor of molecular, cellular, and developmental biology at Yale. And that article was called Law and Behavioral Biology. It's about 100 pages long, over 30 of which are foot and notes. So it was a long and detailed accounting of how behavioral biology can interact with the law. And a large part of behavioral biology, of course, is evolutionary thought, and it's that look at evolution and how it brought about these behaviors that apply to the law. And just to give a very brief summary that is by no means comprehensive or even accurate in its details, but just kind of to provide a framework for discussion. The whole idea of evolutionary behavior, evolutionary biology, and evolutionary psychology hinges on this environment of evolutionary adaptation. And this is the environment that occurred kind of when modern humans and human prototypes came into being about 1.8 million years ago up until about 12,000 years ago. And this is, for the most part, when humans were kind of settled in small tribes in East Africa for the most part, and the environment was mostly stable. And so this is the area where people, humans, were able to evolve over hundreds, thousands of generations. As I'm sure you all know, evolution takes a very, very, very long time, and for the genes that contribute to success to proliferate in any kind of meaningful way, there needs to be a more or less stable environment. And the instability of our recent environments is why our evolutionary tendencies kind of go toward this environment of evolutionary adaptation that ended about 12,000 years ago. And that's because, more or less, things are changing far too fast for evolution to keep up with. I'm sure you guys realize that evolution kind of it selects for the individuals who are best suited to reproduce in any given environment. So if this were to happen, say, with our parents' generation, if it's selected for whoever is the best to reproduce in the environment that they grew up, it would more or less be useless nowadays with us, because the environment has changed so dramatically. I mean, just looking back over the past 50 years, the advances in technology, in thought, in culture have changed to such an enormous degree. Beyond even thought and culture, things more basic, like food, the availability of food, the availability of high-fat, unhealthy food that you can satisfy your desires with at any time, is proliferating at a pace that's far too quick for evolution to keep up with. So the bottom line is that our bodies, our behaviors, and basically everything we have that is influenced by evolution is stuck back in this environment of evolutionary adaptation. And of course, to think about what's important then will give us some insight into why we act the way we do now. And of course, the most important thing back in those days was reproduction. And if you look at evolution from the perspective of a gene, and to be very basic in this, genes, without attributing any real will to them, want to reproduce themselves, and they basically just use humans as the vehicle to do that. And if you want more information on that, there's The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins, which is an excellent book. So the bottom line is that reproduction is really the goal, I guess, of genes, and since the genes use us as vessels, we want to basically go out and be the most efficient reproduction machines possible. So subsidiary to that, there are concerns like not being eaten by saber-toothed tigers, and accumulating resources to impress mates with and to save up and use during the winter. There's cooperation and competition within and outside of groups. And these are all things that basically, in the end, contribute to your reproductive success. You don't want to be eaten by a tiger, so you can live longer and you can pass your genes on to more offspring, etc. So the bottom line, I guess, now transitioning into how this applies to the law, well, the overall goal, I guess, hopefully we can agree, of the law is to modify or change behavior, to keep people, to change the way that people would act in the absence of the law. And so if we want to change and modify behavior, make people act differently than they would without the law, we would want an accurate model of how people behave without the law in the first place, so as to know how we can affect that change in the most efficient way possible. And Professor Jones, in this particular article, used what I thought was a rather apt analogy, and that was that the law is like a lever, and our behavioral model is the fulcrum. And just to directly quote, he said, "Law can generally obtain no more leverage on human behaviors it seeks to change than the accuracy of its behavioral model allows." And so the basic idea of this is that we need to know what we're trying to change before we can go ahead and change it. And so that's not a particularly groundbreaking idea that we need to know more. More information is better, but it is what it is. And so that goes on to, in a more, I guess, more interesting hypothesis. They go on to talk about what they call the law of laws leverage. And this is what I think was a very interesting combination of law and economics and law and behavioral biology. And what the perspective that they used was to think of kind of punishments in law as prices, and to combine that